Well, welcome to it. Time to have a look at the market behavior. Asian markets mostly higher as investors digested Chinese trade data for June. Looking at what's happening on the European side, markets muted. On the U.S. side of things, we saw U.S. futures trading flat, and this even as earnings season kicks off today. But locally, that's where a lot of the activity has been happening. We did notice the rand at this point, 14 rand 59, and it seems to be fighting on three fronts, one of which is the COVID-19 numbers. The other is the unrest that we are seeing in parts of KZN and Gauteng as a result of the looting. And on the other side, it's the U.S. taper risk. So investors saying that by the time we get to U.S. inflation data, we might see the rand a little bit under pressure as well. So earlier this week, we were talking about how the rule of law seems to be important for investors. That's one of the things they look for. The other concern coming through from one of the global fund managers in the investment note is that it's not so much about the judiciary that investors pay attention to. It's also about law enforcement agencies on the ground, the ability to protect businesses, private property, everyone being equal before the law. But that protection of interests and investment is quite important, which is probably why we're seeing the rand trading at 14.59. Looking at the local 10-year government bond breaking above 9% for the first time since June. But to get into all of that detail, we are joined by Makwe Masilela from Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, thank you so much for your time. Let's talk about the JSE at this point. How are we faring?
Good day to you. The JSE started the day, on the brighter side, and we're up nicely. And it's a question of we've been helped more by a weaker rand. Remember, the JSE itself has got the more weight when it comes to rand hedges, which tends to do okay the minute you start seeing the rand weakening. But reality is starting to kick in now, and I think now we're starting to follow what is happening with the global markets. The whole thing that we've been waiting for the US when it comes to their quarterly results, and so far we've seen the likes of JP Morgan, the likes of Goldman Sachs coming with earnings which are better than market expectations. Revenue as well managed to beat market expectations. But the biggest thing today will continue to be the issue about the U.S. inflation. As you said, that the U.S. inflation itself talks more about the tapering. And also we did benefit from what we've seen when it comes to the Chinese data. I mean, to see their exports beating market expectations, that itself, Nastasha, tells you that there is still strong demand out there. The world economy is not as bad as we thought. And remember, they'll be also releasing their second quarter GDP numbers on Thursday.
Given the fact that we're still dealing with a lot of the looting taking place in KZN and Gauteng, and as a result, businesses having to close their shops, what's the impact on the retailers and the financials at this point, locally, that is?
I mean, just look at the financials themselves. They're down over 2%. Some of that can be attributed to a weaker rand. But yes, our retailers are not doing well because it's not just a question of losing sales. It's also a question of losing your stock as well. And we always say that you might as well have insurance. But people forget that as much as you do have insurance, you still have an excess to pay when it comes to that insurance claim. So that's another expense that you have to look forward to. And other businesses worse, because they've been struggling under the lockdown, some were not even operating properly. Some of them won't be surprised, especially the small ones, that they've just cancelled their insurance premiums because it's something that they couldn't afford to pay. But the whole situation is not looking great when it comes to our retailers because most of them have been looted. And the question is, when will they able to start operating? That's another factor.
Let's talk about Tonga. They published their financials. It seems as though there is some kind of turnaround, although there are some problems when it comes to Zim. They're dealing with hyperinflation there. Mozambique, it's a currency issue. And also slow land sales. What did you make of those numbers?
I think so far what they've done well is to dispose assets, worth almost 6.6 billion, and they've used that to reduce their debt. Hence, we saw a debt reduction of almost 42%. But as you said, this whole thing was affected by the hyperinflation regime, the cancellation and delays when it comes to land sales, and also not forgetting that the low growth when it comes to the sugar itself, the production was not impressive, and also bearing in mind that for the fact that they've sold the starch business, they've sold some of the Namibian and Eswatini operation, that itself also had an impact when it comes to their earnings. So hence we saw their earnings going down by almost 800%. And you are saying, you are right, that guys are turning around, and this is a strategy that they started almost 2 years back. It seems to be working out because they want to tighten controls and governance, they want to reduce debt, they want to see themselves as a sustainable entity, and also that worked for them, and maybe that is why they share almost a 6 months break when it comes to their debt, because their lenders gave them that period that they still need to reduce debt by almost 8.1 billion. And remember, the market value of that company is only $1 billion, and for the 3 years the share price has been down a whooping 91%, all because of the accounting scandal.
Right, so before I let you go, Makwe, let me get in there. I just want to have a chat with you about the idea of working from home. We see Nedbank reducing their office space, saying that 60% of staff at any given point. How are you dealing with the whole working from home situation?
You know, it got its advantages because it improves your quality of life. You are home, you are able to do other things, but also it puts some pressure because you don't know when is the right time to knock off. You know, you end up being hooked to your laptop or whatever it is, even around 7 o'clock at night. But yes, I think it gives people that kind of flexibility, and it's something that we need to embrace. But it's just so unfortunate when it comes to landlords, because now people will reduce the office space. But for your workers, I think it's working better, and it should be like that, because we all say that our workers are our most important assets. So I think we need to care about them.
All right, Makwe, thank you so much for your time. That is Makwe Masilela from Makwe Fund Managers, giving us an update on what's happening on the market. And of course, we will continue keeping track on the rand and various other market elements as well. We're going to take a quick break.